Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into exactly how extreme environments over the last 350 million years literally engineered Earth's most terrifying giants. We're going to talk about shifting atmospheres, cataclysmic disasters, and the kind of raw evolutionary pressure that creates creatures pushing the absolute boundaries of biological possibility. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start way back in the age of giant insects, push through the apocalyptic Great Permian dying, and then track the epic rise of the dinosaurs, starting from their humble Triassic beginnings, through the Jurassic takeover, all the way to the Cretaceous climax. All right, first up, the age of giant insects, 350 million years ago. We are starting our journey long before the dinosaurs even existed, stepping into a completely otherworldly era. Picture towering ferns crushing humidity in a landscape that looked less like our modern Earth and a whole lot more like an alien swamp. Now, the really wild thing about this environment is that endless photosynthesis pumped global oxygen levels up to a dizzying 35%. To put that into perspective for you, if you were to stand in that jungle right now, you'd probably feel pretty lightheaded. The air was so saturated and volatile that just a single spark could easily ignite soaking wet wood. And this super rich atmosphere is really what defined the Carboniferous period. With all that oxygen acting basically like biological rocket fuel, land-dwelling invertebrates just weren't held back by the same biological limits they are today. They took all that extra energy and grew into absolute nightmarish titans. You really have to picture the scale here to believe it. Imagine looking down at the swamp floor and locking eyes with Pulmonoscorpius. This was a heavily armored, venomous scorpion exactly the size of a modern bull terrier. Today's biggest scorpions max out around 8 inches, but this 28-inch monster had massive pincers and a deadly curved stinger. Oh, and with its advanced spatial vision, it would have easily spotted you first. And if you looked up, you'd hear the deafening buzz of Meganora. This was a giant predatory dragonfly with almost 360-degree vision, and it literally rivaled a modern peregrine falcon in sheer size. We're talking a wingspan over 2 feet. They were the undisputed apex predators of the skies, using spiny legs to snatch prey mid-flight, whether they were ambushing from a branch or chasing victims down in a high-speed pursuit. Meanwhile, back down on the jungle floor, you'd be forced to share the path with Arthropleura. This was a 30-segment millipede the size of a car. Reaching 8.5 feet long and weighing over 100 pounds, it remains the largest land invertebrate in Earth's history. It was so heavily armored that even our giant terrier-sized scorpion would probably think twice before messing with it. But as we move into our second era, the Great Permian dying, things take a really dark turn. This wild evolutionary experiment was brought to a brutal, screeching halt around 252 million years ago. The planet was about to undergo a terrifying reset that would wipe the slate completely clean. Earth basically got hit by the proverbial double-barreled shotgun. First, a massive asteroid, anywhere from 6 to 12 kilometers wide, slammed into the planet. We know this because it left behind traces of cosmic helium and argon, basically a chemical fingerprint proving it came from space. That impact alone released energy 1,000,000 times greater than our biggest modern earthquakes. But simultaneously, unimaginable volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia and China created thick ash clouds that literally blocked out the sun. Over 1,000,000 years, 3 million cubic kilometers of lava poured out, completely coating the globe in a layer 10 meters thick. All of this triggered what scientists call the Great Dying. It was an apocalyptic reset that suffocated the Earth, wiping out an astonishing 90% of all marine animals and 70% of land life. It transformed a vibrant world into a harsh, toxic place, bringing the era of giant bugs and early mammal-like reptiles to a definitive and devastating end. That brings us to Part 3, the rise of Triassic dinosaurs. Because, as you know, nature abhors a vacuum. As the dust finally settled over the massive, baking-hot supercontinent of Pangaea, true reptiles saw their opening and began an evolutionary takeover. This kicked off the Mesozoic era, a sprawling 186 million year stretch totally dominated by archosaurs, or the ruling lizards. We see a really clear progression here, starting in the Triassic, moving into the Jurassic, and finally the Cretaceous, with each period setting the stage for bigger and more complex creatures. Now, when you think of those very first dinosaurs crawling out into the hot, dry Triassic deserts, you probably imagine towering, earth-shaking monsters right out of the gate, right?
Well, evolution actually has a funny way of starting small before it goes big.
In fact, new research reveals that the root of the dinosaur family tree was this tiny, fuzzy, insect-eating reptile standing just 10 centimeters tall. Known as the tiny bug slayer, or Konganaphon, it survived the extreme Triassic climate by basically shrinking. Being small meant it didn't have to fight larger animals for meat, and that fuzzy skin, that acted as biological insulation, and it's a direct precursor to the feathers we see in later dinosaurs.
All right, let's fast forward to Section 4, Jurassic Giants Takeover. During the Jurassic period, shifting continents flooded those dry deserts, transforming the world into a lush, subtropical paradise. Suddenly, with a warm, moist climate and endless forests of ferns and conifers, those tiny little ancestors had all the resources they needed to just absolutely explode in size.
And just look at the sheer scale of these Jurassic heavyweights. You've got the plant-eating Diplodocus stretching 27 meters and weighing up to 50 tons. These massive herbivores literally had to grow to those colossal sizes just to survive the terrifying speed and weaponry of predators like the Allosaurus. We're talking about a 2-ton carnivore running at 34 kilometers per hour, constantly shedding and replacing a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth. So naturally, this kicked off a deadly arms race. It wasn't just about getting bigger, it was about weaponizing. Fossil evidence actually shows that the plant-eating Stegosaurus didn't just passively run away from danger, it actively fought back. It could literally punch holes straight through an Allosaurus's bones using its spiky, clubbed tail. It's a brutal reminder that the Jurassic was an era of intense physical survival.
Which brings us to our final act, Section 5, the Cretaceous Climax. This is where both predators and prey hit their absolute physical limits, evolving into forms that honestly feel like they were pulled straight out of a science fiction movie.
To survive the Cretaceous, you needed to be a flawless biological weapon. Enter the T-Rex. This apex predator rocked a bite force of up to 5,000 pounds per square inch, easily capable of ripping 225-kilogram chunks of flesh in a single bite. And the most terrifying part? Experts think their tightly packed teeth trapped rotting meat, meaning even if you managed to survive the initial bite, you'd likely still succumb to a fatal, bacteria-laden septic infection. So, how do you survive a monster like that? Well, the plant eaters evolved into literal living tanks. The Triceratops weaponized its head with 3 massive horns and a dental battery of up to 800 teeth just to endlessly grind down tough vegetation. And then you have the Ankylosaurus, basically a walking fortress covered in thick bony plates, swinging a heavy tail club that could shatter a predator's legs with a single hit. This insane evolutionary arms race finally culminated in the absolute peak of terrestrial evolution, the Argentinosaurus. Just when you thought the Jurassic longnecks were as big as it gets, the Cretaceous gave us a 100-ton behemoth. Stretching up to 40 meters long, it's widely considered the largest land animal to ever walk the planet, completely dwarfing almost everything else we've ever found in the fossil record. And here's the thing, dinosaurs didn't just rule the warm, humid tropics. They conquered the extreme cold, too. The stunning discovery of Nanuqsaurus hoaglundi, which was essentially a miniature feathered cousin of the T-Rex, proves they even adapted to thrive inside the Antarctic Circle. They survived brutal, 3-month-long dark winters with temperatures dropping to negative 10 degrees Celsius, using those early feathers as a crucial biological winter coat.
You know, we so often focus on the dramatic way the dinosaurs died off, but let's take a step back and remember, they survived and dominated this planet for a whopping 165 million years. They are arguably the most successful vertebrate animals to ever exist, and their legacy didn't just vanish into the ash. Through modern birds, their direct feathered descendants, and crocodiles, their closest living relatives, their genetic legacy is actually still very much alive today.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. Next time you hear a chirp outside your window or see a bird soaring overhead, did the reign of giants ever really end? Or did they simply trade their massive scales for feathers and take to the skies?